Welcome to another edition of PvR Sports. Today I have Lemuel Smith with me, aka Linwood. We're going to be discussing the NBA playoffs, and we're going to be giving our finals prediction and our MVP prediction. So we'll go ahead and get started here. And Liam, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah, man, the playoffs been good so far. Without LeBron James in it, I was kind of nervous that it was going to be a little disappointing. I didn't watch much. I didn't watch much of the first round because the series were predictable to me. But in the second round, I kind of got into gear and started to watch every game, and it's been good so far. There's been some good surprises, some good players stepping up. It's kind of showing people out there that the NBA is going to be able to continue without LeBron James, which is a good thing in my eyes. So with that said, we'll get on into this conversation. And first, I want to ask you, Liam, looking at this playoffs, who has been a surprise team to you? And what I mean by that is who has made it further than you expected, or even a team that made the playoffs that did good in the first round that you felt would have been swept or wouldn't have made the playoffs. My team, I'll give you my team first. You can give me yours. I picked Portland. And the reason I picked Portland is because they lost their center, Nurkic, late in the season. He was a big part of their team. I feel as if he was healthy, they would have pushed Golden State to 6 or 7 games. And looking at what they did in the playoffs the last 2 years, where last year they was a 3 seed, lost to the 6 seed in the first round, and the year before they were just pretty much swept out. McCollum or Lillard didn't really do good in either one of these series. Lillard did pretty good last year, but they didn't play as well as they should have, and there were 2 disappointing losses the last 2 years after 3 years ago where they were able to defeat a good team in Houston. So they were a team that I expected to be upset in the first round, possibly not even, with them losing Nurkic, not even winning more than 1 or 2 games. So that was my surprise team. This team made it all the way to the conference finals. This team beat a tough Denver team on the road at home in the Game 7. They also beat a tough Oklahoma team with Paul George and Russell Westbrook, and a team that was at the second seed for most of the season and dropped towards the end of the year. So I think that was my surprise team. Give me yours. What was your surprise team of this playoffs now?
I would have to go with the team that's in the fight, the Toronto Raptors.
Oh wow!
I didn't expect them, even though I was really thinking, talking North and they beat Philly. They don't have as much talent as Philly if you look top to bottom. They don't have, they have really one star that can really just take over the game. Philly has Butler, Embiid, Harris, that JJ Redick was shooting, and Ben Simmons. And they were able to overcome that. And then they beat Milwaukee. I for sure had them losing to Milwaukee. They were able to beat Milwaukee. I'm just very shocked as far, especially that bench didn't play well early in the playoffs. And it was really a one-man band. And so I'm being very shocked in Toronto. Probably Portland was my second one. I was just surprised that they were able to get that far. But because Portland, to me, is a team that they had Minu and Harkless, guys that couldn't shoot. So I just knew that teams would just do what Pelicans did to them last year and just trap Lillard, and then when he come off the screen, have a third guy waiting for him. But I mean, they overachieved, and I feel like the Raptors will overachieve.
I agree with you. You would be surprised who my runner-up surprise team was. It was Golden State, and the reason I say that is because they had become so dependent upon Kevin Durant the first 9 games of the playoffs. And even in the regular season, they used to having this team. They built everything around Kevin Durant, Clay, and Steph. Whereas in the past, when they were winning before KD, they had a nice bench. They went maybe 8-9 deep, scorers, shooters, defenders, versatile players. Now you're pretty much depending on your starting lineup and maybe an Iggy off the bench, which is technically a starter because your 5th starter is really a 10th player on somebody's bench. So with that being said, Golden State, after they lost KD and they had already lost Boogie, someone who they were getting used to playing with, he had played maybe 30 games games with them before his injury. I thought that without the depth, with Iggy being in the lineup, so you don't have anyone on the bench, anyone that I knew of at the time, and depending so much on KD the first 9 games, because Steph didn't really play that good the first 9 games. I thought that Houston would pretty much walk through them, and they were my second surprise team because they walked through Houston, and then they beat a good Portland team. And everybody look at that series and say, hey, Portland was weak. Golden State just ran through them. They actually didn't. In the last 3 games of that series, which they were swept, they had 17, 18, and 17-point leads in the second half of those games. So they could have won all 3 of those games had they been able to just hold on and make some buckets in the fourth quarter. So it was a sweep, but it wasn't the type of sweep that you're used to seeing. You know, like last year when Golden State swept Cleveland, that was a true sweep because they were winning every game clear. 15, 16, 17 points throughout the game. Cleveland couldn't do anything other than the first game when LeBron James went for 50. So that was my surprise team, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening to that will be surprised when they hear that. So, go ahead, Lynn.
I can see that. I'm just not surprised because I think to me that's how they play. They actually, you know, it sounds crazy, but I think teams had an actual better chance when Durant was playing to beat them because necessarily this series for Portland for sure because the tempo slows down. You only have to worry about loading up on one side and spot shooting. You know, now when you play him, you got to worry about where Curry going to be because he's going to run around a lot more.
Yes.
Clay's going to run around a lot more. They're going to get in transition a lot more.
See, I forgot that they played that way. I forgot that Golden State style, you know. I got used to, in the playoffs, KD bringing the ball up most of the game and Steph and Clay getting their shots when they can, you know.
Yeah, they're harder to defend right now. So,
yeah, exactly. Okay, that's a good one. I think Portland and Toronto with Portland and Golden State as close second and surprise team for the playoffs so far. The next question. Who is the most improved player to you in the playoffs? And what I mean by that, Liam, is I'm looking at regular season performance to playoff performance. Because, you know, you have these players who they're pretty good during the regular season, and then they just turn up the heat in the playoffs. And I'll give you an example, like Freeze playing with the Cardinals in baseball. That guy would bat like 250, 240 during the regular season, and in the playoffs with the Cardinals a few years ago, he would just kill it, man. He would turn into this unbelievable baseball player. You have some players like that in football who, you know, play Joe Flacco. Play regular during play average during the regular season, get into the playoffs. Guys like him, Eli, they just turn up the gear and they just have their second gear when it comes to the playoffs. They're just used to performing under the lights. So I wanted to look at that, and I pointed out a couple of players, and like I said before, if you have a player that you want to add, you can. My first player that I have is Draymond Green. Draymond Green was a player who averaged 7 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists during the regular season. He shot 44%. He missed quite a few games because he was out of shape. In the playoffs so far, he's 14 points. That's 7 points higher than his regular season average. 10 rebounds, that's up 3, and then 8 assists, that's up 1, and then he's averaging almost 2 blocks per game. His field goal percentage went from 44% to 52%, and he has like 4 triple doubles in the playoffs so far, and he has been a catalyst for that team. And that's just something that they didn't have during the regular season this year with Draymond, and he just turned it to a whole nother level. And his defense is off the charts in the playoffs. I would say he's playing better. I would say he's playing on par with Kawhi, because the job Kawhi did on Greek Freak, that's second to none. But Draymond is doing a great job on top tier players also. My second pick would be a surprise, and this guy kind of pissed me off because last year with LeBron he didn't step up, but this year he did, and that's George Hill. George Hill averaged 7.5 points per game in the regular season. He shot 45% from the field in 22 minutes. In the same 22 minutes in the playoffs, he averaged almost 12.5 points. That's 5 more points per game. And he averaged almost 50% shooting. That's up 5%, and that's huge. From 45 to 50% shooting, that is a big jump in the same amount of minutes, 22 minutes. So those are my two guys. Out of those two guys, I'm going to go with Draymond because I feel like Draymond has really turned up the heat and has really become, I would say, the second best player on that team besides Steph in the last 6 games since KD been out.
Okay, I'm going to go with, I try to go with shopping. I'm going to go with Nikola Jokic.
Oh, wow.
Nikola Jokic in the regular season averaged 20 a game, 10 boards. In the playoffs, he moved up to 25 a game, 13 boards, 8 assists.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty good.
He is a center. Yep. Yeah, so he had a jump in every category. And my next player is Kawhi. He had a good regular season. Yeah. He had a great regular season. But I think I did question. Kawhi is always like a 25 a game, score 26. He'll here and there get to 30. You know, he'll rarely pop 40. He'll just stay 20, you know, very consistent in the high 20s. You know, hardly ever would he get 10 or 11, but he just consistently being 20. He turned into a good to where he could go and hit 40, you know, at will. And the energy he has to use. He was the first player that I've seen that, you know, on the championship contender team where he actually he has to pick up the best player and he has to score.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to pick up the best player. They may choose to. Like, you know, people say Kevin Durant probably pick up the best player last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter while he rests all game.
I would say LeBron did that in Cleveland not in Cleveland, but in Miami his last 2 years because he was the best defensive player on the team and Wade and Bosh went scoring.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, have to. They can put Dwayne Wade on some players.
That's true. So you say he have to do it. That he don't have a choice.
Yeah,
have to.
Okay,
got you.
They had to do it. Mm-hmm. And the energy and the rest. So he will be my. I was actually shocked that he was able to carry them against these teams, especially the Philly series. He was able to carry them. Milwaukee, they just outplayed them. But Philly, he really carried them. So, you know, Jokic, Kawhi. I think about role players. Jamal Murray was another one that kind of had a big playoff. And then if you look at teams like, you know, other role guys that stepped up as far as like, you know, Collins from Portland and other players like that. But those would be my surprises. Jokic, Leonard.
Jokic and Kawhi Leonard. Okay, I could see Kawhi Leonard because when you go from after 26 to almost 32, that's a big jump, you know, and then some of the things that he's doing. So, yeah, I could definitely see that. With Jokic, I didn't think about him because he kind of slipped my mind because I felt like he was on par with his regular season, but some of the things you pointed out is like those are good, definitely good points because I just watching him play, it felt like he was doing what he did during the regular season, but when you point out some of the facts and some of the data, he did enhance his performance from regular season to playoffs. So that was a good sleeper right there. Because when you're looking at great players, you just think like, okay, he played good during the regular season. He's playing the same way during the playoffs. And when you look at this category, you kind of look for players who didn't do well. But what you did was good. You looked at Kawhi Leonard, 26 to 32. That's huge. Jokic from 20 to 27.
20 to 25.
Yeah, 20 to 25. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. Yeah, they're pretty. That's good. So our next question would be, who was the most disappointing team to you in the playoffs? To me, this one has to go to Houston, hands down, unanimous. 110, 118, 110 on all three judges' scorecards. I gotta say Houston. The reason I say that, Liam, is because Houston was a team that the first of the year they had some injuries. They needed hard to carry the team. He did good. Then they started to peak at the right time. And if you listen to great players like Kobe, LeBron, and Jordan, and some of these players who are cerebral as well as very athletic, because Shaq was very athletic and dominant, but he wasn't the smartest player on the court. When you look at like Kobe, LeBron, and Jordan, these guys were students of the game, Magic Johnson, and they all talk about peaking at the right time heading into the playoffs, peaking early April. You want to peak early April, late March in that time frame. And Houston did that. Houston won like 12 of their last 15 games. 13 of their last 16 games, and they were peaking at the right time. And then once they hit the first round, they beat Utah in 5, but it was like a tough 5. It was a top 5 where you expected them to just walk through Utah, and they didn't. But they still won in 5, so you gave them a pass for that. Okay, Golden State arrived. You got Kevin Durant playing out of his mind, but Steph Curry was playing bad and Clay was playing average, and Draymond was playing good, but he wasn't playing as good as he has the last 6 or 7 games. So you had a chance to really hit them when they were down, when they didn't have like that, when they was at full strength. LeBron has never caught that team in that type of situation to where Steph Curry was shooting almost 25% from 3 the first 6 or 7 games of the playoffs. And Houston, they played good. They should have won game 1. They didn't. A couple of bad calls here and there. I felt like James Harden was too busy worried about trying to draw fouls and kicking folks on 3 shots instead of focusing on making jumpers and making buckets and trying to work the hard way. But this team disappointed me. It was 2-2, so I felt like they were going to turn it around. Say, okay, they tied the series up 2-2. Okay, let's go. Now you're back at par with this team. Go ahead and take over the series. KD got hurt. That's another gift. And when KD was hurt, they was up by like 2 or 3 points in that game with like a quarter and a half to go. So they could have won that game with a 3-2, been at home, took the game at home. These guys allowed KD to get hurt. Steph wasn't playing good at the time, and all of a sudden he started to heat up, but you still had KD not playing. And they couldn't win the series. That was so disappointing to me, and that's why they're hands down, all 3 judges' scorecards, unanimous decision. Houston is the most disappointing team to me. Go ahead, Liam.
I'm going to get 2 other teams. You make a good point for Houston. It probably is the most disappointing. Boston Celtics, and I also have OKC.
Boston was my runner-up. OKC not so much, but Boston was my runner-up. You're right.
Even with OKC being a 6 seed, man, listen, you got 2 top 10 players on one team. 2. Steven Adams is pretty good. They had Jeremy Grant that could rotate a little bit, and they had Schroeder off the bench. You know, as far as talent-wise, man, OKC is disappointing. Russ, the way he played was disappointing. But if you go to Boston, Boston has everything in the world as far as talent-wise. This why, you know, we'll say you can stack teams. Now, it works with Golden State because they're all great shooters. But when you have a team that has great players, but they all play a little different, it's very difficult. Kyrie was disappointing, very disappointing, with how he played and his shot selection. And I know that may be his shots, but he didn't get to the paint. They don't get to the free throw line. Jason Tatum, I think people really put too much stock in him. And then it just shows just how they play. And I think what's going to kill them is they probably, what they need to look at is they had 2 young guys, 2 young stars that probably, you know, end up being stars. And they in the situation where they're young, but they want to win now. They kind of got to figure out what they want to do. Because you can't try to force a win now and get another star because then Tatum can't develop and Brown can't develop. Yep. So they have to figure out what they're going to do. But I'll get you with Houston because of the fact that KD got hurt in that game and they couldn't win it. But Houston, to me, does not have the talent. Even though they play a style to where they can win because it's going to be the numbers will catch them in their favor. But in playoff basketball, you know, they got to have some guys that can get a bucket. You know, with Houston, I think they made a mistake in cutting Carmelo Anthony because in that series they had nobody that could get like an easy bucket, mid-range bucket. but they so analytically driven. See, at times when you just need that two or somebody that could just come in and score, that's a big body. He could have helped them a lot. He gets to the line. He really would have helped them in that series, but they were so big on analytics and they lost it. So I can't fight the Houston because of the fact that KD got hurt while they're in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it Game 5?
Yeah, it was Game 5.
Game 5, Game 6, Game 5,
and they were up like 3 when he was injured in the middle of the third quarter. Because he was about to take over because they were actually down 5, and then he made a jumper to cut it to 3, right. And then he hurt himself right there.
And then on top of that, they can't adjust. Like, you have to adjust on the fly as a coach. Coach has to know, okay, they're going to start playing the Golden State way. So we got to defend them like the old Golden State. Trap Steph Curry, trap him off every pick and roll,
yes.
Double team him, and then, play from there. Don't let him get in the rhythm. But they would segue into my disappointing player too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's coming up next. We kind of jumping right into that. So the next question would be the most disappointing player in this playoffs, and I have 4 names, and I'm pretty sure you're going to pick one of these two of these 4. And you might have a 5th, but I'm going to go with the 4. I have Ben Simmons, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists during the playoffs. 17, 8, and 8. He was down in every statistical category in the playoffs. And the eye test was telling you that he didn't really want it. He didn't have the killer instinct. He wouldn't take shots. He wouldn't take over the game the way you saw him take over the game during the regular season. He just looked like a puppy out there with big dogs. He looked like a cub in a den full of male lions. He just didn't look right in that series with Toronto. And guarding Kawhi Leonard, he didn't even guard Kawhi Leonard tough. He just allowed him to do what he wanted to do and made it easy for him. Kyrie Irving, the last 4 games versus Milwaukee. 19 points per game, down almost 7 points from his regular average, and 30% field goal percentage, down almost 15 percentage points from his regular shooting in the last 4 games against Milwaukee. Greek Freak, 20.5 points per game and 43% field goal in the last 4 games versus Toronto, down 27 points from his regular average, and down almost 15 percentage points. He shot like 58, 59% from the field in the regular season and early in the playoffs. This guy was like automatic around the rim, man. He couldn't make a bucket when Kawhi Leonard guarded him. He was the same way as Ben Simmons. I saw him fold in the playoffs. He looked like LeBron James against Dallas in that series versus Toronto. And LeBron is my guy, but those last 3 games against Dallas, he looked like somebody told him they were going to shoot him in the head if he tried to score or tried to be aggressive. And that's how Greek Freak looked to me in these last 4 games, especially in the fourth quarter. He even took himself out of the game in the fourth quarter in the last game when they were down like 3, and he checked out for almost a minute with like 3 minutes left. You can't do that. And he really disappointed me because I expected him to be playing in the finals right now. And my last one is Russell Westbrook. 22 points per game in that one series, 36% field goal, 32% 3-point, which believe it or not, his 3-point percentage was actually up versus regular season, because in the regular season he shot like 28%. So those are the 4, and the 2 I'm picking out of that group is Ben Simmons and Greek Freak, simply because of the body language. The one thing I can say about Kyrie and Westbrook, they still were trying to kill it and go for it, at the end. Greek Freak and Ben Simmons looked like they was fucking afraid out there. Like they had never seen a basketball in their life in clutch situations. So those are my 2. Go ahead, Liam.
Mine is one name I would add. I'll go with Chris Paul. Chris Paul, Clint Capella.
You hard on Chris Paul, bro. I don't think Chris Paul plays that bad. But go ahead. This is your 2, so I can't tell you what to say.
Yeah, Chris Paul, Clint Capella. I go with Ben Simmons, and Kyrie. Those are my 4. I'm going with Chris Paul because there were last year before he got hurt, he was the X factor. He was killing Steph Curry. I mean, killing him, scoring. It was. I watched the first 2 games. I think when Golden State went up 2-0, and he would not even look to score at all. Like he wouldn't attack, and it would kill them because they'd get down late in the shot clock and they'd have to hoist up some stupid 3. When the best available play was to attack, and he had to attack Steph Curry, and had him play defense for them to me to have a shot. Clint Capella just is. I don't know. It was some dude in our sports group that told me Clint Capella got the post game. That just lets you know how dumb we are.
Yeah.
But Clint Capella, he can't. Other than catching alley-oops, he's useless.
That's
and
true.
And they paid him all the money. Now, it gets to the guys.
He's like an enhanced Tristan Thompson. Because he can actually catch the ball. Tristan Thompson can't catch.
Right. He can catch a lot. He's a longer, a little bit more athletic Tristan Thompson. That's it. You look at Boston. I won't put Greek Freak because Greek Freak did kill the first those 2 rounds.
Those last 4 games pissed me off with Greek Freak because you were actually playing good the entire playoffs. How all in the first 2 games of this series, and how all of a sudden you just nut up and just lose everything like the last 4 games.
But the thing is, it's very difficult when you don't have confidence in your jump shot and they load up on you. It's kind of because you're not in the comfort. They take you out your comfort zone.
But Liam, he also shot 40% from the free throw line in those last 4 games, and like 28% in the fourth quarter from the free throw line.
I'm with you.
And that's one thing. Look, what's one thing I say about LeBron? LeBron is not a great free throw shooter. He's about 74%, but in the playoffs and in tight situations, I was looking at his shit the other day. He actually improved in the playoffs in tight situations. So Greek Freak just, to me, he just all around nutted up those last 4 games, and it totally pissed me off. Because he stole a legendary series from us. Because that's supposed to be Kawhi versus Greek Freak to Game 7, battling it out, and he pretty much didn't show up the last 4 games.
When you don't have the jump shot, because what he was killing the other teams they had adjusted and made him like the big on the pick and roll, and he'd get post situations and he'd get in the paint. He scored all this stuff in the paint, occasionally hit a jumper, but when you're not comfortable, the Toronto is a good defensive team, took him out of his comfort zone a little bit. Ben Simmons, I'm not as hard on these guys because one, they're 21-22. So, you know, the experience in the class, the only thing I would be disappointed with Ben Simmons is that last year, they had issues in the playoffs because he couldn't shoot a jumper. Yeah. So you knew going to the summer, you knew that you needed a jump shot. You went the whole summer and did not even attempt to work on a jump shot.
Yeah.
Then attempt, and you came back with the same game, and they did the same thing to you. So his is disappointing because it's almost like he's arrogant, like I don't need the jump shot.
Yes.
And Kyrie just didn't play well. I mean, his leadership, I don't want to hear nobody talk about Kyrie's team in Cleveland. His leadership, it shows. He had top coach, top GM, good players,
good teammates, yeah.
He had everything. Yeah, he had everything you would want, and he couldn't get it really done. So those would be mine. I'd be rest. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about rest.
Yeah, Westbrook was so disappointing. Okay, I like those two. So let's go to the next question would be, who has been the best team so far? You have Toronto, who defeated Orlando 4-1 in the first round. Philly in the 7-game epic series. Milwaukee 4-2 after being down to 0-2. They came back, won 4 straight games, and won 4 tight games. Then you had Golden State Warriors. Was able to beat the Clippers 4-2, which was a difficult, tough series, but they pulled it out. They beat Houston 4-2 after KD was injured, and the series was tied 2-2. They won the next 2 games, and then they pretty much swept a tough team in Portland, who has seasoned guys, who have guys who have a lot of playoff experience, and they were able to sweep them without their best player and without their center. So, I mean, with those two teams, and I'm picking from those two teams, I'm gonna go with Golden State because you saw two different teams, and both teams won. You saw the team with KD. They made it to the second round. It was 2-2, and then you saw the team with Steph Curry, who was 6-0 in the last 6 games. Toronto, I like Toronto, but I feel like they should have lost to Philly. Philly blew that series with Embiid being hurt and injured the entire series, and Ben Simmons not giving you 50% of what he gave you. So I feel like they lucked out of that series. And then I felt like Milwaukee had the series and they just gave it away. You know, it's like Toronto who just was able to, you know, withstand all the pressures and all the obstacles that were put in their way. And the other two teams were better teams. They just didn't want it. And I feel like Toronto just pretty much lucked out this entire playoffs, except the first round. So I'm going to go with Golden State.
Okay. I think, it's Golden State. Golden State just played with really, I mean, of course, of being rooting against them, I still like how they play basketball without KD. This is going to be, I think the thing is, I think it's going to be a competitive series. The only thing I don't like when people Golden State I think they're going to lose the game. I think they may be game 1. And the first thing, all they need KD. They'll come back and then
say those thoughts for the next category. Stick.
Oh, okay, yeah. But
I want you to give all your pointers away. So Golden State is the best team. You got anything else you want to add on it? Why did you pick them over Toronto?
Just cut me off. I like.
Yeah.
I just like the way.
I didn't want you to give away the next category because it seemed like you was going into the answer you needed for the next category. But
I got Golden State because of I think their bench has stepped up too, and I think people thinking that they don't have. I think those guys can play. McKinney is a sharpshooter from 3.
Yeah. Them guys are knocking down some big shots. Yeah.
Iguodala, they may start him, but Livingston still gonna come off and give you. I can't stand him because he always gets that little 10, 12 footer, little jump shot, post jump shot, and he hits almost all the time.
Yeah.
And Looney, those guys play well. So I would go with Golden State. Toronto, like you said, man, they just been resilient. I don't know what's gonna see with Kawhi. I know he's gonna come, but you just don't know anybody else. Is Siakam gonna play well tonight? Is it Baca? Is it Clowry? Is it Van Fleet? So
even Van Fleet played terrible like the first 10 games.
Horrible.
And the last 2 or 3 games, he been just balling, man. He been balling.
Jody Meeks, he get his shot. They don't play Jeremy Lin.
Nope.
He can come and give you 6 or 7 off the bench.
Yep.
You know, I think their bench could be a little bit better and give them more. But you know,
one thing I said about Golden State before we move on is I remember you telling me a couple years ago. You said, "Man, you watching Golden State draft?" And I was like, "Yeah, they got a few players." You was like, "Nah, they picking athletes." And you said them boys gonna come up big. And I was watching their last 2 games, and I was like, "Wow!" I said, "These young boys are stepping up." And everybody they got, those young guys, are all athletes. Like Looney and a guy that can shoot. They long and athletic. And I said, I remember Liam saying that a couple years ago, that all they're doing is drafting athletes now to put around Steph Curry and Draymond.
Right.
And these guys are coming of age. So if they lose KD, they could just add probably a B+ player and still be the favorite to come out the West. With those athletes. So so you got Golden State. I agree on Golden State also. All right, so who has been the playoff MVP so far? We have 2. I have 2 in this category. If you want to add a third one, you can. Kawhi Leonard, who is averaging 31, 9, and 4, and 1.6 steals. He's shooting 51% and 39% from 3. Steph Curry, 27 points a game, 6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 45% field goal, 39% 3-point. And when you look at the 39%, to anybody listening, he was shooting like 25% the first 10 games. So he's raised that in the last 4 games. So that's how well he's been shooting. So he's probably been shooting like 55% from 3 the last 4 games. Out of those 2, I have to go with Kawhi Leonard. And I wanted to pick Steph, but Kawhi has done it the entire playoffs. Steph just started the last 6 or 7 games. Kawhi has been consistent every game in this playoffs, and he's been consistent night in and night out. And even when he hurt his leg a couple of games ago, he's been tough, and he's still been giving you the numbers: 25 points, 17 rebounds, 13 rebounds, guarding the best player on the floor. He's just been doing everything, and he's been carrying the team. And it hadn't been a weak road either. When you look at Philly, who has 4 All-Stars in their lineup, 4 All-Stars, and you look at Milwaukee, who has arguably the best player and the MVP in the league, and they won 60 games, and they have one of the best defenses and 3-point shooting teams in the league. He was able to beat them also. So I got to give it to Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, be Kawhi because of course he plays both ways, but because he's the most valuable. Toronto's a very good team. If they just take off Kawhi, they may be an A seed, maybe A seed. You know, if you look at the dynamics of like Golden State, they don't even have KD, and they still in the finals. You know, KD was there, they took Steph off. I think I don't know if they would actually, they'll get to the finals. It's just, you know, Kawhi is just so valuable with what he does and what they build around him. So, yeah, I have to go.
Yeah, all right, cool. That makes sense. All right, got 2 more. The next to last one is with KD's injury. How does that affect Golden State moving forward? And I want to ask this before we get to our finals prediction, because I think this is a big deal. I don't think he's going to play in this next series. I think if he is on the court, it's going to be after Game 4, because I think Game 2 is on Sunday, so they got a little break, and then Game 3 is on Tuesday, and then Game 4 will be on Thursday. So that'll give him another week to recover, a week for the doctors to clear, a couple of days for the doctors to clear him, and then maybe 3 or 4 days of practice before he can actually get on the floor in Game 4. So he could come back, but honestly, I think it's probably a 7% chance he's played his last game in Golden State. I think the fact that people are saying now that Golden State is so good even without him, and not saying they're better. I never say that, because anytime you can put a KD on the floor, you are going to get better. But it's just if they win this series, it's going to hurt his championship legacy, because people are going to see hey, yeah, you beat LeBron James, you made the 3, but how easy was it for you? You know, with the spacing on the floor and the guys around him that are always threats to score. Clay and Steph could score 30 at one time, and Draymond could give you 15, 10, and 10 at any time while defending the best player. So I think it's going to hurt his legacy. I think he's really feeling it right now. You could tell by some of the attacks on Chris Bouchard, and I was looking at his Twitter feed where he was going at some of the fans that were saying things. I think this affected him, and I think he absolutely won't stay another year. I think he's gone.
Yeah, I'm positive he's gone. I think he's gone to New York. I think, so the issue, he's definitely gone from Golden State. Thing is he wants like hell to come back and play in this series. But if they win it without him, it's definitely gonna kind of tarnish a little bit. But I think another thing he needs to think about in this free agency too is, because he needs to win. Now, he's a guy, he don't need draft picks, he don't need a team built. He needs to go somewhere where they ready to win. And he might need to consider the Brooklyn Nets because of what they have. And I think that may go into his decision. As far as, going to the Knicks, I know everybody's the Knicks, but if he goes, even if they just go with him and Kyrie, I don't think that's enough for them. They will have, I think Brooklyn is set up because they have a lot of good players, LeVert, Dinwiddie, Russell. They have a lot of good players.
Well, what are they going to do with Russell if they get to it, both of them? They're going to have to let Russell go. I don't think you can keep all of them.
If I'm the Nets, I don't want Kyrie. I just keep Russell.
Oh, okay.
I keep Russell, get Durant, and then what I would do is I would try to clear cap in Porzingis. if nobody tries to do an offer and match, he'll just be unrestricted free agent. I go after Porzingis the next time I'm Brooklyn. And that would help Durant. But he gone from Golden State. But I don't know how his path to a championship is going to be a lot more. It's going to become more difficult now.
Yeah.
But he's going to go to free agency telling these teams, what can you do to get me? He's going to be in LeBron mode.
He's going to need at least one ring with his own team. Validate
he's going to be in LeBron mode trying to get players. He's going to have to get some type of, and he might, if Kawhi goes to the Clippers, he might have to go to the Clippers.
Yeah.
He might. I don't think he wants to, though.
Yeah, that would be tough. With Kawhi doing so good, I think it'd be tough for him because people will say like you ran to another great, top 3 player. I think he's going to look for a team. I think if he played with Jimmy Butler and or Kyrie, I think that would be good for him because they will be obvious seconds. But if you go play with Kawhi, people are going to be looking at like, okay, who's the number 1 player, who's number 2, and they can switch up at any time. But I just know one thing: he's gone. I think he's obviously gone. I think he understands that he has to prove himself. He's defending himself too much on social media, and I honestly, although I think what he did was a weak move by going to Golden State, I felt like he could have went anywhere and built his own team and said we're going to go beat Golden State. Hell, if you think about it, Liam, he could have signed with the Clippers with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and went and beat the hell out of Golden State, and put a couple of shooters around him. He could have did something like that, but he decided to say, I'm going to go to this team thinking that people would just ignore it, and they haven't. It was too obvious. I think the difference between him and what LeBron James did in Miami is when Miami started winning rings, there was no question that LeBron James was carrying the team. Yeah, it was like, it was at the point where Bosh was scoring like 0 points in playoff games. And LeBron would still win, or Wade was having his knees drained, and he was injured, not injured, but he had to have his knees drained. He was playing. D Wade should have been playing like 35 to 38 minutes. He was playing like 28 minutes a game because he had to protect his knees throughout the playoffs. So it was just an obvious thing. Versus when you in Golden State, you watch KD win the MVP, averaging 30 points, 8 and 6, but on the other end, Steph averaged 29.5 points. 8 and 8, you know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things to where he needs to go on his own and show people that he can win. I think that's what he's going to do. I think the injury was terrible for him because now if he get this 3rd ring, nobody's really going to count it if he don't come back because they'll say, yeah, you got 3 rings, but you really didn't play that last year. And then it's going to also say like, they didn't really need you for those other 2 rings, which I think they did because they want to beat LeBron James without KD. And that's just me, LeBron and Kyrie. They want to beat those. They could. You're right. Man. They could have had a chance. They were up 3-1 with LeBron and Kyrie on the team. So it would have been. I would say when KD got there, it was 90-10 Golden State. It would have been more like 60-40 Golden State without KD.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be more like 60.
Like 99-1.
Yeah, exactly. 99.5 to 0.5 here, really. But let's get to this last category because we right at like 43 minutes. So, last category, finals prediction. Who do you think gonna win? Why? And who is your finals MVP? You go first.
Golden State in 6. MVP is going to be difficult. I'm kind of going back between Draymond and Curry. I think Curry has a favorable matchup. Lowry doesn't have to win. I think it would have to be Curry for them to win, but they'd probably give it to Curry if he has, 20-something points. But Draymond has to play like Draymond been playing. He will actually, to me, be the most valuable guy. But Steph Curry and then Warriors in 6 games.
Okay. Why do you say the Warriors in 6? What do you see with KD out? What do you see if they have it? Toronto doesn't.
I think Toronto is a very rugged team.
Yeah.
I think they're long. They do have Siakam, Ibaka, Leonard. So defensively, they're long. Danny Green, good defenders. I just think they can make it, and they're gonna slow it down. They're gonna have it half court a little bit. And I just think they could win 2 games. I think they're going to win 1 in Toronto for sure. And I think they'll go on the road and and try to see if their bench can get it going. If their bench play like that, I think they'll get them 2 games. But I think in the end, Golden State just shooting, the tempo of it, and I think they're going. Most important, oh man, I think they're going to do the Dame Lillard defense with Kawhi. They're going to trap him off the pick and roll, have their third man sitting there waiting in the paint for him, and they're going to really make the others. I don't think he's going to have a great series because he's going to play 1-on-3 the whole time, unless Toronto makes shots.
Got you. What? So do you give Toronto any? What percentage would you give them of an upset opportunity? Like 10%?
Of winning the series?
Yeah.
15 to 20%. 15-20%. I think they do have a chance because I think this is a little bit more evenly matched team. So I think evenly matched teams without KD now they're regular, very one of the top teams, a regular team. But I give them a shot. The issue is Toronto gonna have to make some shots. Kyle Lowry gonna have to make them stay honest and get off Kawhi a little bit.
Got you. What about so with the MVPs you got Draymond and you said 15-20%.
Yeah.
Draymond or Steph, one of the two. Okay, so my predictions are the same. I'm with you on this one. I have Golden State at 6, and that's only without KD. If KD was playing, I would have them in 3.5. But without KD, I think Toronto do have a chance to take a couple of games. I think the best opportunity is to snatch game 1 and then maybe come back and get game 5 at home, before going to Golden State and losing in game 6. I mean, so with that, I would say that's only without KD. If KD come back in game 3, then I would say it's going to be probably be 5. Because even if he comes back and only gives you 20 minutes, I just think the threat of him being on the court is going to open it up even more for everybody else. And he's going to come in and he's going to play within the offense because he's going to be trying to get his rhythm back. So he's not going to come in and, okay, this is a one-man show. I'm bringing it down. I'm setting up and I'm doing everything myself. So without KD, 6 games. Kawhi can steal 2. I just think Toronto, like you said, is a team that's been lucky the entire playoffs, and I think their luck is going to come to an end. I think they actually have a 20 to 30% chance to upset Golden State, and the reason I put that number so high is because of the fact that Van Fleet has been playing good. Ibaka has been playing good, and Siakam has been pretty much consistent the last 3 or 4 games, where he's around his 15 to 18 game average. Lowry has been playing like a different Lowry in the playoffs. Usually he's like shit in the playoffs, and he's actually been playing pretty good the last series and a half. So I got to give him credit. So I think Toronto does actually have enough players to play. They when you think about it, they do have 2 other All-Stars on that team. And if everybody can hit on the same cylinder, you could get bench points from Van Fleet. You could get Ibaka come in, make some big blocks, hit some nice jumpers, and Kawhi can be Kawhi with Siakam and Lowry helping. I say it's a 30% chance that if they win game 2, you win game 1 because Golden State been out for 10 days, and then they could sneak game 2. Now you got a 2-0 lead, and you could probably pull it off. You'll have what, 5 games to get to? It's a chance.
Yeah, but see now this is the kick for Toronto. See, you want to take advantage of the size inside, but this may not be a series for Gasol because he's so he had to defend Draymond. People want to take him out. I would, and then Gasol too is not aggressive offense. I was watching the last game. He was in third quarter. He only took his second shot. Yeah. Like, he doesn't get in the post and go to work. He's like a high post pass player, a way less aggressive quarterman Jokic. So I think that's going to be something to watch too. But I mean, we'll see. You giving Toronto a little bit more credit now. But we'll
Yeah,
see.
exactly. And my MVP is going to be hands down Steph, because I just can't see them giving it to anybody other than him. Even if he's not the best player in the series. Let's say if Draymond averaged 19, 12, and 8, and averaged 2 or 3 steals and 2 or 3 blocks a game. You and I both know that's enough for him to win that MVP if Steph only averaged like 25. But I think at this point it's more of a lifetime achievement award, because he was screwed out of the first MVP when Iguodala won it. And I think they're going to go ahead and just give it to him. And I think it's going to be one of those things that's going to complete the trifecta for him. He's going to have first team All NBA. I think he got Olympic gold medal, Finals MVP, League MVP, and a championship ring. So yeah, he have everything. But thanks, man. It's a good call today. I wanted to cover the NBA. I felt like we probably could have covered it earlier, Liam, but with the NBA playoffs going on, I just figured like, hey, we got a couple of days between the finals. Let's just cover everything and then talk about the last series, and that'll be the best way to cover it this year. So I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for your input here. As always, you smart. You brought it. You bring good data and information, unlike some of the people in our sports group. So I just want to thank you for joining me, man. And thank you for listening to the PvR Sports Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch new episodes and PvR clips. Like our Facebook page and share with your friends if you enjoyed this podcast. As we say in the South, catch you later.